RF here from Country Lunch on WOOL 91.5 FM. Let's get back with part four of our interview with Paleo Mountain Man and Budcat 7. You're talking a lot about serpent walls, and listening to this, you're not talking about much about love and culture that I feel it was the biggest part of it all. So the serpent walls are like the voodoo walls to stay away from my women.
No,
Is that why they built those
no,
serpent
no,
walls?
no, no, no.
Why not?
No,
No,
it
I
was
think
culture.
they're just trying to honor the deity. That's all. That
Well,
was their
that would be
principle.
the
Not
deity to face that. It is about love. I mean, life is about love. God is love to me, and there are things that rules would be serpents. So, when they start making rules, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, then you got serpents, right? And churches, also, like you were talking about how the serpents and the churches came up. Well, in my point of view, they would come up to face the serpent and make a way so people could live in peace without fear of the serpents, because they would just face right up to them and say, look, we're here. We're godlike. And, the serpents don't mean anything to us. Rather than worship them, we know they have powers, but we also have powers. And we have women. And we have love. And voodoo to you, you got to find your own.
Al, the serpent wall was a place of veneration. It wasn't evil. Even though it was a serpent, it wasn't evil. It was a place of veneration. It was turned into an evil symbol because of religions. Long before you had major religions in the world, you had the serpent religion. And it wasn't even a religion. It was a way of life. It was a way of belief. And the serpent was the life energy, the God energy. It was what healed you. It was what connected you to other people. It was a life force.
And connected you to the earth.
The earth energy,
connected
sure.
to the living earth.
Sure. And that's to me, that's what the serpent was. And to violate all of that past history, the serpent became the devil, the evil thing. And it's like calling people cannibals. Oh, they're just cannibals. Well, serpents are evil.
Yeah,
So everyone
part of the
right, Dave?
destruction of their culture.
That's right.
They
That's
needed to destroy
insidious.
this culture.
It's an insidious
and,
thing to think about these people. They were not worshiping evil serpents. They were culturally creative and artistic, and they had dams and bridges, and they had trails, and they would travel and build things up and down the coast and trade and grow corn and beans and
it's
squash.
obviously that they cared about their people. They cared about their people enough to
They weren't
create
killing each other off.
living
They were
space for
giving
them.
each other's crystals to heal themselves. That's the spiritual
Absolutely.
aspect of it. And the serpent was just that energy. It wasn't an evil thing. It was the energy that runs up your
It was
spine.
a positive energy. It was
Right.
just a positive energy.
It's the energy that people worship now as, the Kundalini
God
or
or whatever, right.
the earth energy that you can heal yourself with. And they actually healed themselves using crystals. And they did all kinds of things like that. That was healing to them. And who knows, maybe a crystal will heal you of your if it makes you feel better, if just being around them make you feel better, maybe your whole body can change and your whole mind can
Well,
change.
people say that now. People wear crystals around their neck.
They do.
People say that now, and for good reason. It's that, this just didn't spring up out of anywhere. The reason why we have this sort of, crystal and health connection today in the 21st century and the 20th century is because they took that information from the people who lived in the past.
And they carved all kinds of images in these crystals to enhance the power of them. And they'd fit in your hand. And if you believe you're getting better, a lot of your ills will go away if you believe it.
Absolutely.
And it's a positive power. It's not evil. The serpent was that energy. To them, it was life-giving energy from the earth. The serpent came out of the water into the light. It shed its skin. It seemed new every time it shed its skin, brand new. no eyelids.
And
It's
perhaps
different
they
than
felt
us.
the same way about the white crystal as well. They felt exactly the same way about
Same
the
thing,
white
yeah.
crystal.
It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. That's where the worship comes in, the religious aspect, or the ancient serpent religions. And I can't even call it a religion because it wasn't structured that way. It was more like a way of life. And if you respect
Right.
everything that has that energy in it, you'll respect everything. Even
And
the-
which is what they did. They
what
respected
they did.
everything. They
That's what
believed
they did.
everything was sacred.
That's what they did.
The birds, the bears, the cats,
There was
the
a
trees,
being
the
in
rocks.
everything, and that being was just like you. It was no different. You're not better than that being. That's why they thanked their prey when they killed it. They thanked
And
it.
all their ties to it, all their ties to all these natural things in their environment, their ties to all the individual things, the environment, everything was sacred.
And what it tells you is these people were brilliant. They were brilliant people. They weren't what we hear or expect to think about when we think of, Indians, Native Americans.
So we only want to think about how they're savages and bloodthirsty, and
far from the
that's
truth.
what
They were
given to
brilliant
us.
artists and thinkers and poets, and they
And
knew how to heal
peaceful
people with the power of
people.
the earth. They did.
Peaceful people. You know, you have to think that people who live in a unified society where you don't hear about outside enemies, like, let's say, for example, the Adena and the Hopewell. I've never heard anything about any of their enemies.
No.
And we don't know if these people had any enemies, but the fact that the whole Northeast is a giant habitation area, there probably were no outside enemies. These people lived in peace. They did their agriculture. They healed with stone. They worshipped their, serpent deity in the ways in the reverent ways that they did.
I think when all
they're
that
not these
disappeared,
savages killing people, running around just committing wholesale murder against everybody. I think that we've been given that, but that's not what the truth is.
when they disappeared, there was an energy change, and that's when a lot of the other cultures rose up after that. And there were a lot of warlike cultures and tribal cultures, and this is different than that. This is more of a beneficial culture. It was they had scientists and astronomers and builders and thinkers and poets and artists, and they were growing corn and genetically raising corn and things like that.
Too.
Yeah, they were into genetics. I mean, think about it. Think about the brilliance of the human mind, and if you let it flourish by feeding it, say, good things, maybe a quartz mountain or a quartz crystal under your pillow at night, and you believe it's going to help you, rather than taking a pharmaceutical. Put a piece of quartz under your pillow. It's a lot safer. There's a lot less side effects.
Or maybe in tandem, maybe simultaneously, because these people certainly knew about herbs, healing foods, all that kind of stuff. So maybe it was done simultaneously.
You can get the same crop of 2 crops and grow it 2 different ways, and they grew their crops in a different way. They grew it with respect, and in the ground, if you treat the ground that way, you don't have to put chemicals in it to make things grow. They want to grow. That's what they want to do. And they had techniques of growing in the fields that they could use small patches of cleared field, to grow a lot of food. And they did.
And not only that, their growing practices were very different. I go all over this on my channel. I have the professor from Cornell University, who's an Iroquois native person, and she's an agricultural specialist for Cornell University and with native people. So the way that they grew their crops was often they grew many crops together with each other, and there's a way of doing that. So they grew, let's say, maize and squash and beans all inside the same area. In other words, they didn't have a separate field for squash, a separate field for beans, a separate field for maize. No, that's not how they did it. Is that they grew the beans and the squash among the maize, all in the same area.
They did.
And they did that.
Did. They
The
grew them
type
around.
of farming that's the type of farming that they did.
They grew it right up in front of the wall up here too. There was a lot of evidence of grinding stones and habitation. They lived in these areas also. They did grow
For
food.
thousands of years. And again, as we said, as Jimmy and I came to the conclusion on our own, and then affirmed and confirmed by Charles C. Mann's book, that these people were doing burning as a means of clearing, and then they cleared these rather large areas in which they could grow their beans and squash and maize. But they did that thousands of years ago.
Yeah, they did.
This whole thing about the colonists and settlers toiling to clear the fields is a nice, romantic story about the Americas, but on a certain level, it's sort of infantile, because we know from just looking at it that these fields were cleared of all large stone millennia ago.
They came and took the cleared fields, and they didn't have to remove the stone on a lot of them.
They moved right in there.
It was already.
They moved right in there.
Yeah, it was already moved. There was a lot of cleared fields. There's stories of thousands of acres of corn being grown. The first people that came saw farms. Miles of it, right? And you know how hard it is to grow an acre of corn and keep it tended? I mean, it takes a lot of people. It takes a lot to do that. And then, of course, that corn is feeding lots of people. That's how you get the earthworks so big out there. Is they had a lot of food. They were plentiful in food, and they knew how to grow it. And this is a thing that the whole corn thing.
Cornfields feeds the whole world today.
Corn is a big
number one crop
piece of the story
in the world. Number one.
Yeah, it's a big piece of the story here.
Entire world.
And how come the mounds have corn that was twice the size of modern day corn? I mean, why did the corn get smaller?
Right, because the gravity changed.
Well, that could be. I don't know. I'm just asking because it used to be bigger, bigger yields.
People, bigger corn,
bigger animals,
bigger everything, bigger trees. Everything was bigger.
Everything was bigger back then.
Well, they had to shrink everybody too, because they started expanding, and they couldn't all fit in the planet at that size.
Well,
that's a good reason.
We'd be bouncing off each other if they stayed that big.
Mammoth used to be 10,000 pounds, but the mammoth that died out 4,000 years ago, I think lived on an island. They were a lot smaller. They got smaller over the years. They shrunk. So even the last mammoths became pygmy mammoths over the years, and it didn't take that many thousands of years. But people back then were.
And who knows when they really lived up to? Because I heard, like, for instance, Sylvie from the New Earth Channel said that she had known about reports of woolly mammoths being in Russia and Siberia up until just 7, 8, 9,000 years ago.
It could be a lot less than that. They still find them frozen there. You can eat the meat.
Could be less than that, right. You don't know what the story is.
The wild animals are eating mammoths still up there. They come out of the permafrost and they eat them.
They could feed their dogs. They would take the mammoth meat out of the ice there and feed their sled dogs with the meat.
I just saw a thing about that today. They're still eating mammoth up in the tundra up there.
You can check out Paleo Mountain Man on YouTube, and you can check out. You can see a lot of what he's collected and visuals of all this, and also Budcat7 on YouTube, and you can find out a lot more information about what they're talking about.